Hello everyone and welcome to DC Central, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down and reviewing Arrow Season 7 Episode 12, otherwise known as Emerald Archer, and this is also serving as the 150th episode of Arrow, so let's discuss. So yes, this is the 150th episode of Arrow. This is a huge achievement for a show to get to. You know, we are 7 seasons into this show, and you know, obviously for a show like Arrow and for a show like a lot of the other Arrowverse shows having 22 to 23 episodes per season, these episode counts do, you know, rank up pretty quickly. But in saying that, getting to 150 episodes is still a huge achievement for any show, and I think we, you know, owe the team behind Arrow and the CW a massive round of applause to getting to this point. Obviously, I'm very proud of this show. Arrow is my personal favorite TV series of all time, so to see it get to this monumental achievement is really beautiful to see. And we heard quite a lot of things about this episode going into it. We all speculated that they were probably going to do something fairly special for this episode like they did with the 100th episode, and we found out that this was actually going to be a documentary style episode. So the whole documentary style of this episode was incredibly interesting to me, and something that I was very excited about, because I thought this was something that's going to separate this episode from every other episode of Arrow. It's going to be something that would be very fun, and something that's going to make it a very interesting watch, and it was definitely that. I think this was so well handled, so well shot, so well edited, and I think all these elements coming together makes this documentary idea come together so well. I loved all of it, like the camera work, the filters they put on it. Like, I had this very grey filter on top of it, which at first, when I first seen this filter, I kind of thought, this is very plain, it doesn't look very nice, but eventually you do kind of settle into it, and I think it actually pays off in the end. But what I really loved was the camera work, particularly in the action sequences. There were a couple of action sequences in this episode where it's all shot on a handheld cam from the documentary footage, and it's awesome to watch. It's really unique, because obviously Arrow normally has great camera work in the stunt scenes anyway, so to take that and basically do it from a essentially amateur perspective was really well. It was a really good decision, and I think it works really well for this documentary crew who are following Oliver around the entire episode. And again, it's the camera work, it's the editing. There's a lot of moments in this that feel like they're one-shot takes. There's a particular shot of Oliver just running down a corridor towards the villain of the episode, and it looks like it's one shot, and it's really well done. It was just so unique, and we did find out as well that we're going to be getting a couple of like comedic moments with the characters, kind of like what we get in The Office, where characters just kind of look at the camera, and we do get a couple of moments like that, particularly with Curtis and Diggle. They probably get the best moments. It's really fun to see Curtis and Diggle just kind of like, you know, Diggle's just like sometimes looking at the camera sometimes, and Curtis is kind of playing up to the cameras and stuff like that, so you do get some fun moments like that too. And overall, you know, they were aiming to do something really interesting with this documentary style episode, and I think they succeeded and hit a home run. Now, we found out about the villain of this episode, known as the Anti Vigilante. I'm not quite sure what I was expecting with this character. I mean, we kind of knew he was coming, and we kind of knew that this character was going to be hunting down all the vigilantes in Star City. But I mean, it's just kind of a villain they had to face. Like, I think a lot of people were bigging this villain up more than they were trying, like more than they were supposed to. Because like this character, I never expected to be anything big, and he's not. He's basically just, you know, an assassin going around taking out vigilantes because he was essentially obsessed with vigilantes. You know, he kind of had like this idea that he wanted to collect all of their masks, and that's why he was killing them all. It's kind of interesting though, because we do see in his little base of operations, we see the masks of both Huntress and Ragman, and they never actually confirm if Huntress and Ragman are dead. So I don't know, like, are they dead? I guess we just have to wait and see. I really hope not. You know, I'm going to talk about Ragman a little bit later, but I really hope Ragman's not dead. But the Anti-Vigilante for me was just kind of like, it was just kind of like meh, like he was there, that they needed a threat, and that was it. I did quite like the idea of him being obsessed with vigilantes. I thought that was a cool idea, and you know, the lengths that people will go to, like they talk about that, you know, to kind of be like the people they love. So I do kind of like that side of it, but it was just kind of like nothing, and we're never going to see this character again, so I'm kind of just going to forget about him. Now, we also get the return of Jack Moore in this episode as William. Yes, the young William, who is Oliver's son. He comes home, and I have to say, this was dreadful. I hated this. I was not looking forward to this at all. And I thought, you know, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what happens. But he was dreadful in this episode. Like, the way he comes in, he's just like really stroppy, and he's just throwing his weight around with Oliver and Felicity. There's a chip on his shoulder, and you do kind of find out some things later on that kind of hint at why this may be happening. But we also, like, have this scene between him and Zoe, which was really odd because obviously we see and it's obviously trying to set up and establish stuff for the future storyline, because we know in the future William and Zoe are good friends, but they act like they're really good friends in this scene, but we've never really seen William and Zoe interact that much on Arrow at this point, so it kind of feels unearned, which I found a bit weird. And also just William just throwing his weight around, you know, with the whole tablet thing at the beginning of the episode was just, you know, completely poorly acted. I'm so sorry. I don't like saying things like this, especially about young actors, because I really want them to, you know, continue to pursue their dreams and to keep working. I just really don't feel like Jack Moore is strong enough to play this character in many scenes, and I feel like this was one of them. And you know, you find out as well, Felicity basically hacked into the boarding school and realizes that William got expelled. So William's been expelled from his school. We don't know why. It's going to delve into that a little bit more next episode, it looks like. But also the conversation that he has with Zoe, he says he's about to like basically tell her that he's gay. I believe that's where they were going with that scene, because you know, they have that conversation about, oh, did you ask out a girl and did she not like you back and things like that, and he said kind of. And obviously we know in the future William is gay. Like he tells Roy that when he's on Lian Yu. So I feel like that's where they were going with that scene. So I feel like William is processing a lot at the moment, and that's kind of why, yeah, that's what they're trying to play with this. And again, I think this would have played a lot better if Jack Moore was able to work with the material a bit better, because I think the material was good. It just, again, the acting from Jack Moore was not up to par. I mean, I really hope he can improve, because I think, you know, at this point you can't just replace the actor, but I really hope that he improves, and I wish all the best to him, and I just hope he improves and grows with this show, because I'm sure he's going to stick around for quite some time. Now, we have a big return in this episode as well, in the form of Team Arrow. Team Arrow actually reform in this episode, which was really, really interesting. This was a thing I did not expect. Essentially, they are all basically branded as officers by the SCPD, and this was something that I guess was necessary and something they had to do. But essentially, after they all come out to defend this public event and take down the Anti Vigilante, at first they're all arrested, and then eventually they are all branded as officers and all, you know, working alongside Oliver and Dinah at the SCPD. This was okay. I suppose it felt a little bit convenient. It felt a bit clunky the way it was done. It was very quick, especially because Maya Pollard as a character is very anti-vigilante, especially with the anti-vigilante law and things like that. She's a very big advocate of that. And in one scene she arrests them all, and the next scene she's like, oh yeah, it's fine, you know, you can all work with Oliver. So it was very strange to me. The way I look at it is that they needed a way to bring the team back together, because we knew that Team Arrow was going to reform at some point in this season. You know, it had to happen somehow, some way, and this was the way of doing it. Like I say, if it was necessary, they had to do it. I just felt like maybe there could have been a better way of doing it, or a less clunky way of doing it, because it felt very rushed and very convenient to me, which was a bit annoying, but I guess they had to do it. Also, the documentary crew do follow Oliver into the bunker, and he basically says he's going to rebuild the bunker, which again confuses me, because I find that strange. If all of Team Arrow are working under the SCPD, that includes Diggle, that includes Curtis, who are both also serving members of Argus, then doesn't that mean that they would have to work in the SCPD building like Oliver does? Or are they just going to work in the bunkers like their own? Are they like their own separate division of the SCPD? Like, I don't know why they're rebuilding the bunker. I find that a bit of a strange thing, but I'm excited to see what the bunker will look like, because we do get hints a little bit later on at what it evolves into. I just find the whole rebuilding of the bunker thing and them becoming members of the SCPD was a bit rushed and a bit strange. I think it could have been a little bit better handled in that way. And we get one flash forward scene right at the very end of the episode, which I didn't expect. I didn't expect flash forward to be a part of this episode at all, to be honest. But it turns out this documentary that was made was actually banned in the future, and we see the character of Mia, played by Catherine McNamara, watching the documentary. And I thought this was really something I was a bit unsure with. I'm not completely on board with the character of Mia just yet. I think it's because we don't know anything about her, or the character. If you don't know who I'm talking about Black Star. I think that she is a bit, you know, underdeveloped at this point, but she's only been in 2 episodes, so I can't really say much on regards to that. But this scene serves as a big reveal moment, because we do also find out that John Diggle Jr., otherwise known as Connor Hawke, is in this future. Now, the last time we saw this character was in Legends of Tomorrow Season 1, in the Future Star City episode. And that was really fun, because obviously we had Connor Hawke in that episode as the Green Arrow, and here we have him again. So who knows what they're going to do with this character in the future. We knew this character was going to come up because we saw the actor in Vancouver hanging out with the other actors on the show. So we knew he was coming. I didn't expect it to be this soon. I thought it was going to be later on. But I'm really excited to see what they do with him because we don't know what's happened to Diggle in the future. We don't know where he is at this point. He's never been mentioned or referenced really outside of the Mark of 4. So we don't know what's happened to Diggle. So therefore, what has led to, you know, him becoming this character, and also, you know, how does he know Blackstar? I feel like this is going to do a lot more for Blackstar, so I don't know, there's a lot of really interesting stuff coming in, but I'm happy we have this character, and again, it just provides more links to the present storyline, and also links it back into Legends a little bit, which is a nice little tie-in. Even though that timeline technically doesn't exist anymore, it's still nice to have those little, you know, references, to have the same actor come back who played him in that episode. I think that's a nice little tidbit. And the last thing I want to talk about in this episode is all of the wonderful, wonderful character cameos we had in this episode. There were so many that returned. First off, we had Paul Blackthorne returning as Quentin Lance. This is the first thing you see in the episode. You see Quentin talking about vigilantes. I loved this little moment. Quentin, probably one of my favourite characters in the history of Arrow. I love him. So to see him come back, I mean, I've severely missed him since he passed away in Season 6. I've been really hoping in some ways that they could bring him back in some kind of way. So to get this scene, I absolutely adored. We also got Thea. We've got Willa Holland returning as Thea. We kind of knew Thea was in this episode, so it was nice to see her. We also get a really nice little picture of Moira in this episode as well, to get that little throwback. It would have been really nice if we could have got Susanna Thompson back for this episode, but it wouldn't have really made sense. But it was nice to have Thea there as well. I do miss Thea on the show. We've got the character of Sin, who I thought was an interesting one. I liked the point she brought up in her particular little interview where she says, you know, yeah, they do great for the city, the vigilantes are great for the city, but you don't realize the toll it takes on them. And she's seen personally the toll it takes on them. She's close friends with Sarah, she was close friends with Roy, so she saw all that. I enjoyed her. I didn't know how I was going to take to her coming back for this episode, but I actually enjoyed her cameo. Sarah was really awesome. Nice to see her. They got her off the Wave Rider for this, and she gets to talk about Quentin, because we haven't really seen Sarah deal with Quentin's death on Legends, so it was nice for her to have that little scene there. I liked that. And then we got Barry Allen, probably the most surprising cameo. I didn't expect Barry to show up in this episode, but he does. He's there, and he gets to talk about, because obviously him and Oliver Queen are friends in the public eye, so that was cool to get him there, and he was really sweet and innocent in his interview. And then my favourite has to be, I mentioned him earlier, Joe Dini Cole returning as Rory Regan, aka Ragman. So good to have him. You guys don't understand how much I love the character of Ragman. I thought he was so underserved. He did not get his due. So I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for this character to return. And here he was, getting his interview. Very, very short scene, but it was just so nice to know that Ragman is still out there. He's still around, and he still has respect for Team Arrow and for Oliver. And it was really nice just to have him back for this interview, just for this one episode. I really hope Ragman does return. If he's not dead, like I mentioned earlier, I really hope Ragman can return to the show in some way, because just seeing this moment with him really reminded me why I loved his character so much. So, you know, all these character cameos I absolutely loved. If I'm being nitpicky, if I'm just being a fanboy here, I would have liked to have seen Moira, but we can't have everything, and I'm not going to, make a massive complaint out of that. Just personally, I would have liked to have seen Moira, but all these cameos helped to make this episode feel like the special episode that it was. Overall, I absolutely loved this episode, although I do have some issues with it in terms of its story structure. I still think overall the documentary style, which is what they were really trying to push, I think worked really well. Like I said, I think they hit a home run with it, and they knocked it out of the park in terms of the camera work and the editing and the stunt work. It was all so well handled, and bringing back all the character cameos was great. The flash forwards, bringing John Diggle Jr. as Connor Hawke was a lovely addition. I can't wait to see what they do with him. I do have a couple issues with it, obviously, like the Anti Vigilante wasn't that exciting, and the character of William, not being that great, but I still really enjoy this episode. I'm going to look back on this episode with glee. I'm going to rewatch this episode plenty of times. It's definitely one of my favorites of the season. It's probably one of my favorite episodes of all time, and I think that this really stands on its own as a fantastic episode and just as a really cool experiment episode, and I think it paid off really well. So thank you guys for watching this episode of DC Central. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more DC content, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an upload. And I hope to see you guys again next time.